My game has received some major progress updates in terms of its 2D game. I've gone ahead and I've now added in an enemy, and I've also added some other minor extra things. If we were to go ahead and showcase, we can see. So, as you can tell, we have these cubes right now, which I will definitely add some actual animation and sprite work for all of these missing things, but these are the enemies. Now, it's using a script from my previous project on the Walton Files game. Except, to avoid plagiarism, I have been making some tweaks to allow this to be more customizable, as the previous scripts did not really want to separate its jumping and patrolling. It was more of it can jump and walk and do this instead of oars. For instance, if I'll go ahead and explain here. So we have added in some extra things like jump height, damage, and want to jump. This allows us to customize our enemies now to be more of a mix match. You can have your enemies do different damage. You can increase the jump heights whenever they detect the need to jump. And you can also now specify if your enemy wants to jump. This allows me to then make my game more closely like original platformers, where there will be enemies that will not just jump, but also like Koopas from the original Super Mario Brothers. Go ahead and just bounce from one side to the other when it detects a cliff. In terms of the actual coding, there isn't really too much change, besides I have, of course, added in the whole need for wanting to jump to go with this script. And if you don't, then it goes ahead and does this script again, but negates the roof check, so that it doesn't have to detect roof whenever it comes to changing direction. Of course, we've also changed minor things like how instead of just a straight up value, it does damage value, which again is changeable. And other aspects like jump heights and nothing really too much else has been changed for the enemy. So if we go ahead and we showcase, so we can have this enemy, of course, to do 15 damage when touching the player, 700 jump height, and it does not want to jump. So if I go ahead and show that, the enemy will go ahead and it will bounce. Instead of jumping. If I were to go ahead and enable it to jump right here, you can see that it jumps. And you also just now saw that if the enemy touches me, it will go ahead and do damage and bounce the other direction. And of course, you can also see that there is actually a health UI bar in the top corner. I originally was going to make this on top of the player's head, though I felt that it didn't work well for what I want to do. And keeping to an aesthetic of an original platformer, this works out better in a sense. We have also been working on getting this door script to work, so that when you collect this key, it goes ahead and opens the door, allowing you to pass on through. Of course, we will have more and more enemies to show up for you to kill and such and such. You also do have invincibility whenever you get hit, which is similar following to my previous work. We of course have also got a goal. As of now, it only reloads the scene because we do not have the other scenes that I need to work on. Minor extra things to note is that we have also changed minor things towards our render texture to be point to allow the pixel art to appear more crispy instead of its more blurry approach. I felt this to be a better change because from what I know, it appears CRTVs were more, while certainly blurry, they also still kind of had a pixel clarity towards pixel art games. So I found this to be a better match rather than it being full blur. In terms of other changes, there isn't really too much to note because I've been starting to work on my other projects that I feel needed more time to work on. Though we will, of course, showcase that these do exist in here. I don't think I will be reusing this door interact script that I've had when it comes to activating doors and such, because, of course, the E key will already be in use, so I'll likely have to change that if I wanted to use it. And other than that, I don't really feel like there is a much need for it. Similar to the tracker, I don't think the tracker needs to be using it either. We can, of course, see here as well the scripts for the ones that are in use. For instance, the key, which what happens is if it detects a player, it will go ahead and set the active for the key to. It will set the active for the door to be false while also destroying the key. The goal, simple, where it detects the player, and if it detects the player, it will wait for 2 seconds before loading the next scene. If we go on to the enemy, we can of course see that we have an enemy health, which I will likely have to update whenever I do introduce the shooting aspect of the game. The wall jumper, which is for detecting the roof, and the enemy V1, which is the script that I've showcased before. And again, if I clicked on the enemy, you can see it's using the same principle as the enemy from my previous work. And it follows the same structure, which worked in my previous projects, so I thought, why wouldn't I reuse it in a sense? Just make minor changes to avoid plagiarism. Not only that, of course, but this enemy can actually be dealt damage, unlike Bon from the Wharton Files, which I will, of course, go on to showcase with the 2D player, which I have started adding in some of the previous stuff I've done in previous projects. For instance, the bullet scripts sprite that I have made and minor extra things. Though, of course, I'll have to make changes for them to work with the new Impa system. This allows it to not be plagiarism. Of course, similar things with the health bar. The health bar goes ahead and detects the player's health, which will then also connect to the slider. It would then change the max value to the max health and the main value to max health as well. Which then, if you start dealing damage, so if I were to go on the player health, it would go ahead and deal damage and also give you invulnerability temporarily. This will also link towards the slider and such, and it will make it so that the health is max health from the start, and it will constantly update the health to be the health bar to the actual health. The teleport scripts and such are also ones that I may use or I may not. It's something that I'm going to think about, but for the purpose of this game, I don't think it's much needed, so I'm going to leave it for now. In terms of the actual bullet, we do not necessarily have everything yet for it. If I were to go on the player, we of course can see that there is not really the bullet script yet. But again, that is a thing that I'm going to have to add, which if I were to add it onto here, I'd have to make an actual bullet controller rather than the bullet script, because the bullet's main script is just for detecting collisions and dealing damage if it's an enemy. For instance, if I were to drag in the bullet, which that is the sprite, this is the asset. If I were to grab the bullet, you can see it has the script, it detects the stuff, and it has the speed, which I will of course have to make changes to make it work, but as of now, it's simple. That is going to be all for this progress update. I will definitely be making more posts and more videos in the future because the game is starting to come along when it comes to the 2D aspect of the game. When I get this 2D aspect done, I will start working on the 3D aspect, which, as again mentioned, I do have the player controller for the 3D. I'll just need to make it work for the level design and other minor extra programming that I'll need to work on. But again, that's all, and I will update things whenever I have stuff to show.